Hey, Taryn. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
how you doing?
Uh,
Good to see you.
Good. Happy November. It's crazy. This year is flying by, and we have quite a bit of it behind us. I'm Michael Dobson. I am the SVP of Involved Media, which we are a digital agency who specializes specifically in search, social, programmatic, and influencer marketing. Everything from planning, optimization, reporting, analytics, all of the good stuff that we love in the space. Taryn and I are going to talk a little bit about that today, but I want to kick it off with introducing Taryn as it relates to your role and digging into kind of all the changes you went through. Tell us a little bit though to start just about your background and kind of how you've ended up where you are today, and some of your previous roles that are relevant.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Taryn Rayment, Chief Marketing Officer at FTD and Proflowers. So I started my marketing career actually on the B2B side. So doing everything from performance marketing to trade shows, all of the type of B2B marketing related things. And I really wanted to be on the retail side. So I shifted over to the agency world and managed a few different clients, actually launched their original websites, as well as all of their original digital marketing. It was sort of as things were really progressing in that world. So worked very closely with these retail clients on optimizing that as well over the years. And I wanted to be on the client side. I feel like the agency side is this incredible opportunity to learn so much and to do a lot. And you kind of have all these wonderful ideas that sometimes the client doesn't move forward with. So I wanted to be that person that said, yes, let's do that. So went over to the client side. I went a few different retail companies. So New York and Company, for example, Toomey, I was running all performance marketing as well as CRM and analytics. And then went to Cole Haan, where I built out their retention and acquisition team. And then now here I am, Chief Marketing Officer at FTD. So running everything marketing as well as owning the P&L with my counterpart, the Chief Merchandising Officer.
Wow, that's a lot. Definitely a lot combinations there as it relates to actual like marketing, advertising side. The CRM piece of it is huge, especially in the space that you guys play in, and the loyalty that kind of builds into the business, I'm sure. As it relates to FTD specifically, and for those who aren't as familiar with the brand or kind of how you all are positioned, tell us a little bit about the different brands that sit within your space and under your umbrella overall, and kind of your areas of focus within FTD and Proflowers.
Yep. So it's FTD and Proflowers. They're both gifting destinations, but we differentiate them in the way where on the FTD side, it's a little more elevated. We really message to the local aspect. The way that our business operates is if you're buying something floral that's being fulfilled by a florist, it actually gets sent to the local florist near the recipient. They handcraft it, hand deliver it. And, we do so much more for them, even beyond sending them orders. We really power their POS systems, their websites, anything from a technology perspective that they also need. We also do marketing on behalf of them too. So we work very closely with them as partners. So that really shines through on the FTD side. On the Proflowers side, it's a little younger, a little brighter, a little more fun. We take a little bit more risks on that side when it comes to things that we're doing in social media or different partnerships that we have. So while they're similar in what we're offering, we're definitely segmenting them differently from an audience perspective, as well as how we're messaging to them.
Got it. Awesome. It sounds like Proflowers, and I know we'll probably pivot into this a little bit more, but is a little more e-commerce focused, and a little younger, as you said. So being able to be a little more flexible with some items. It's really cool and interesting that you describe FTD almost as I see as like a franchise support, but without actually being a franchise of FTD. Does that sound right?
It's similar. They're more partners as opposed to a franchise. They have their
Yeah.
own businesses that they're operating as well. But we do support them, within that tech and marketing and order sending piece.
Awesome. I know whenever you joined, there was a lot going on with the brands. I think you kind of referenced it a little bit of as a reset. So kind of wanted to understand a little bit of what you walked into, the timing of why you were probably brought on, and the team that you built around you. So tell us a little bit about like that rebranding and reset that you faced when you walked in.
Yeah, so I started in April of 2020, which is a very interesting time to start. And what had happened was the company was sort of revamping their executive team. So I started as a chief marketing officer and really had there was a lot to sort of fix. The brand had gone through some shifts over the last few months prior to that. So there's two P&Ls within our business. There's the consumer side, and then there's that B2B side that I mentioned, which is our members. And marketing, there's marketing in all of those areas, but they were very siloed and they weren't really speaking the same language. So we made sure to combine that. The team was also just really not set up well from a tools perspective. So we did a lot of revamping when it comes to what tools they had available to them, what different channels that they were able to start to play in. There was also very much a new building of this customer journey too. The team was somewhat siloed in the way that they operated. So I sort of reshifted who reported into what their different responsibilities were. So that way we could really think full customer journey as opposed to really just thinking how one channel is performing in its own little world. So there were a lot of changes. It was fun because when I started, there was just a lot of opportunity. So, we sort of created this test and learn environment, which was a really fun. It was kind of a fun time to do it too, because, if we're all thinking about back during COVID, media was a little less expensive. So we had a little bit more budget to kind of play with and see what worked where. So we did a lot of that, and we continue to do that even, in this post-pandemic, can we say post-pandemic world? Yeah. And then especially like with the cookies going away, it was really a nice foundation leading into our world today to really empower the team to think, what, I think this new social platform is going to work well for us. Let's try it. It was a lot of changes and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot of pieces that were in play. And you had to figure out exactly where you wanted to combine certain areas with those silos, as you said. That probably played a lot into like looking at your like marketing media mix and how you wanted to look at things moving forward versus how they were historically done. Is there any detail around kind of what things look like 2 or 3 years ago? And how things even shifted from like maybe more of a linear out of home focus to like the social or digital space, and how you rebuilt or reestablished some new views on that?
Yeah. So when I first started, it was very lower funnel focused. It was, we were sort of hitting the same people over and over. So one of the first things we did was start to really get into new customer acquisition channels. And like I said, that test and learn mentality, where should we be? What should we be doing? CTV and linear have actually been performing very well for us. So it's definitely channels that we continue to invest in. We also started to invest in TikTok, as everyone knows, started having that boom. And we didn't think it would work, quite frankly, going into it, because our audience, especially on the FTD side, it didn't seem to fit that TikTok audience. But we found a way to really message to that consumer and get it to work, which was super exciting. And just continuing to find new ways. So either whether it's a new display partner or testing even existing partners against others to see if there's areas of opportunity, just continuously trying to find what works best.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great whenever you have the timing and the ability to do the test and learn and market, whenever you have the funds to do it, which in digital, you can do a lot of test and learn with lower amounts if it's not a huge, investment from a creative standpoint. It's very turnkey. So that's good and allows us to pivot very quickly when it's not going so great. So
for sure. And even on the creative side, we did and continue to do a ton of creative testing, especially as we were building out our rebrand, trying to figure out what resonated. It was a huge piece of what we did too.
Yeah. And we've seen with some brands too, with like using creators to actually do the creative for you is so quick, right? You're providing a brief to an influencer or creator. You can get that in market and get creative, within a matter of 24 hours, 48 hours sometimes, once they're signed and everything, versus a larger creative approach, which we all need still. isn't necessarily as turnkey. But for the seasonal aspects and a lot of what you probably deal with from, you know, those what I'll call moments and seasons that people are like celebrating, right? You know, gifting and stuff like that. So that's really neat in your space. I'm sure you guys kind of tapped into that a little bit. Speaking of, I kind of wanted to talk with you, hit on the consumer journey a little bit. How do you guys look at the consumer journey as it relates to, you know, connecting with that individual during their journey of those moments, as I put it? I don't know what you guys may call it, but that's the word that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, we call them occasions. Sometimes we do say moments too. But yeah, it's a great question because this industry is very interesting because you don't necessarily know when someone's like significant other's birthday is, for example. So for us, we want to sort of be ever present in someone's mind when it comes to where they should be going for a gifting moment. And so we do that a lot throughout our marketing. We do try to get a little bit more specific if we have some more consumer data as to like what occasion is coming up that they may need to be shopping for. But for the most part, we're sort of ever present. And yeah, our occasions, while we're very Valentine's and Mother's Day focused, we are definitely looking at other opportunities. We're growing even within other non-peak periods, really looking at what product is going to be best within, you know, birthdays or Halloween, for example. What should we be relevant for and selling within those different occasions? And we're doing a lot of marketing around those too. So yeah, it's sort of this ever present. So that way you think of us when that occasion pops up.
Yeah. So being the first go-to source, you know, whenever somebody needs you as a actual service, and to be able to have that, you know, occasion of if it's gifting or if it's, to your point, Mother's Day, you know, every year or something like that. I know I get automated emails from a local florist that I've bought before that I think you all actually support from some of the branding I've seen. So it's kind of cool that they actually have that automation set up from a CRM standpoint, to your point, to your earlier point of knowing, you know, when I need to send a birthday gift, you know, to my grandmother, or Mother's Day to my mom or something like that.
Yeah.
Earlier, you hit a little bit on Proflowers, specifically with like testing into new platforms like TikTok and new opportunities. As it relates to Proflowers versus FTD, is there some large differences in the actual marketing and the brand itself? And, you know, do you guys play a little more heavily in the digital space with Proflowers, as you were kind of alluding to earlier?
We're fairly similar when it comes to where we're playing. To be fair, though, some channels are just invested heavier in on the Proflowers side. So TikTok, for example, we do see it perform even stronger than it does on FTD. So we do play around with budgets as to which channels are performing stronger and which brand. From a messaging standpoint, we definitely try to differentiate them. Any sort of segmentation, we definitely split to try to, you know, not make sure that we're overlapping between the two. But for the most part, it's really this messaging and segmentation breakout that we do. We also, when it comes to different partnerships that we're looking at, we sort of figure out which brand it makes the most sense to sit in. So for example, FTD is a sponsor of the Kentucky Derby. And then on the Proflowers side, we work closely with the Dodgers. So kind of look at what makes sense for each too when we're evaluating partners too.
Got it. And is a lot of that also like play into, like you say, Kentucky Derby and, you know, the Dodgers? Like, I start thinking like local efforts as it relates to certain DMAs, local florists, where it's maybe heavier that you're trying to support more actual brick and mortar shops. Is some of that weighed into your marketing plan for local versus national, or is the majority of it national?
So a lot of it is national. On the FTD side is where we focus on anything local, though. So there is definitely a local piece to our budget and a lot of marketing there too.
Yeah, and especially I'm sure in the digital space where you can get, you know, hyper targeted within certain, you know, DMAs or geos that you're trying to go after. So that helps that whole story, I'm sure. Let's talk about our fun topic of measurement. You know, in this space, you know, I work with a lot of CPG brands. I kind of relate a little bit of, you know, what you guys have almost as a CPG, where you may be restricted to some of the data that's pushed back from the local shops. Tell us a little bit about like how measurement was versus where you're going with measurement now. You mentioned earlier, like the deprecation of cookies and less reliant on that. Can we just kind of give us a little more under the hood on how you guys look at measurement from an overall play?
Yeah, so I think we're all rethinking measurement, especially some of the things that you just called out. So there's a couple things that I want to touch on. So from a actual activation standpoint, I think a lot of those channels that always worked aren't necessarily working anymore. So we also have to sort of rethink what that channel mix is. So we've done a lot of that. And again, that test and learn mentality that's been instilled in the team has really helped for us to figure that out. So it's really being able to take risks and see what else is out there that works, because it's changing. And then the thing that makes it even more difficult is, okay, now how do we even measure these new things, especially when they're typically channels that aren't last click related, and something that isn't really directly measurable. So what we've done a lot of holdout groups, whether it's doing certain channels within certain geos and then measuring effect and lift within those areas. We are investing in technology to sort of help us from an attribution standpoint to really understand our channel mix. So it's definitely this, we can't look at last click anymore because it's just not the same. And really understanding what channels have what effect when it comes to a halo on others.
Yeah, it's it's something we're all facing, obviously. Have you seen, you mentioned a couple of things there. You mentioned the tool piece of it and how you guys are investing in your technology and your stack overall, I'm sure. Do you have a combination of both internal efforts for what you're building out as well as relying on external tools that leverage that?
We do. So we work with external partners when it comes to some of the tools that we have. Of course, we have access and we're definitely in the weeds in it internally as well. And then we do have a data team who is very, sort of our like right hand people that we work with very closely when it comes to how to measure different things that we're working in, as well as what we should be thinking about from a measurement standpoint moving forward. So they've been super helpful with setting up dashboards, even helping us with some of these tools and living in them with us. So that's been really great too.
Awesome. That's always fun whenever you get some of those new findings coming into a role like this and being able to like dig at what's working, what's not, test and learn against certain things, and being able to see what's really working with the consumer and how you want to pivot to your next, campaign opportunity. So, I know that through the deprecation of cookies and everybody working through building out more data, a lot of marketers have faced, I don't have enough CRM data. I need to get that, as soon as possible. Tell us a little bit about like you going down that journey, within the last couple of years.
Yeah. So first thing when I started was to make sure that we had a CRM that was accessible to the team and being able to really use it to the best of their ability. And then, of course, building it out from there. So we have a loyalty program within each of the brands, which certainly helps from a data capture perspective. So especially within our roles, we kind of touched on it earlier with not really knowing when someone's occasion is coming up. That is a piece of our program to make sure that we're trying to capture as much information as possible. So I think that's made some huge strides when it comes to capturing as much first data information as we can. We also have different like widgets and things on our site, which assist in being able to do that too. Our checkout flow, we're basically trying to get as much from the consumer without it feeling like we're trying to get as much data. And it's really to help personalize. I mean, it's in the benefit of our consumers to provide this for us so we can help remind them of that birthday that they might forget about or whatever that occasion is. So, but yeah, that's definitely been a huge focus over the last couple of years, sort of knowing one, it's best practice, but also just knowing with the cookie deprecation happening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine you keep the CRM data very segmented with FTD versus Proflowers.
Yes. Yeah, they're very separate.
Very separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have any cross learnings between the two? You're like, well, I wonder if this relates over here at all or vice versa.
We'll look at that sometimes. What's interesting is our consumer database is has a very small overlap. So our consumers within each are actually fairly loyal to that brand. And it also sort of shows that we're doing a very good job of segmenting when we're getting new consumers in as well. But there's definitely some learnings, even, when we're testing into certain channels, if it works on one, will it work on the other? Should we test it in the same way to find out? So it gives us some room to play around, which is fun too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, especially whenever you have like some learnings, you're like, oh, it worked over here. Now let's try it on this brand or for this, initiative. So that's always helpful for sure. A little bit of on the kind of that split that you were describing. Do you have is your structure right now currently I'll call them media managers or marketing managers? Do they split on the Proflower versus the FTD side, or do you actually have it come together at a certain point for that cross functionality, I guess is what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, it's a good question. For the most part, so it is the same teams that are working on both. I've found that them having the knowledge of each, both to make sure that we're splitting them appropriately, but also to kind of take learnings from one and share with the other. We do find, though, we do have external partners within the social world, which are different per brand, because we just find that social is just so different for those consumers. So we sort of like the idea of having two completely different partners working on those. So that's the only channel that we sort of split the management of it. But for the most part, I like that everyone's sort of thinking through both. So that's how we've been doing it.
Got it. And then from the customer experience standpoint, obviously they have the two brands split. So it makes sense that you would have some areas where there are, certain initiatives and a certain brand voice and feel to the overall and, efforts that are happening within campaigns. So awesome. I know you have some really exciting things that are coming in the near future. You guys are working on some new initiatives that are kind of outside of your core. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you have coming that's exciting soon?
Yeah, so we are launching with a bunch of new partners when it comes to same day, next day gifting. So I mentioned our florist network, our members. They're this amazing resource to be able to have this same day, next day gifting experience where it's maybe not just a paper bag dropped on your front step from someone, but it's a gift. It feels like a gift. It is wrapped, it is hand delivered to you, and it's just this really beautiful experience. So we are actually working with a few different partners. We have Milk Bar and Baked by Melissa live already on our site. So, flowers with cookies or the little mini cupcakes from Baked by Melissa, again, delivered same day, next day within your area. And it's been really exciting to watch this unfold. Our members are so excited to have it in their shops. And the consumers have been really excited about it as well. And then we have some things coming too. So, we've got candle launch as well as alcohol, which we just feel from a gifting perspective, as well as with our brand is very aligned. So we're just continuing to really grow within our assortment when it comes to our merchandise and what is going to continue to be relevant for all of these occasions, not only Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, which are peak periods, but beyond that. So any occasion that you really need throughout the year. And what works really well with flowers, which is what we're known for. And so we have a lot of really exciting things coming, and that's just like a sneak peek at some of it, but a lot more to even come over the next few months, which we're very excited about.
That's awesome. Milk bar, cupcakes, spirits, all exciting things, and I know that personally too, whenever I'm ordering a gift for someone that's on the other coast and I'm not sure who exactly to reach out to or how to do things last minute, what you're describing is perfect, because you don't know if it's showing up in a brown bag and just sitting on the doorstep, or if it actually, got handed off in a nice way and packaged, overall for that experience. So that's awesome. So this will overall grow the connections of local florist shops and partners that you have in market with these extended, occasion solutions and gifts that they can put out there. As it relates to kind of the growth of the business, do you guys see this as a huge piece of what you'll market in a new, different way, like to feature this? Like, what's kind of the vision? I know you're still like working on kind of some of these of what's next, but how does that look for just a tease?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've even, so the pieces that have been live, so Milk Bar, Baked by Melissa, we've done a lot of marketing even in partnership with them. So it's definitely a huge piece of our marketing campaigns. And again, we've seen a lot of success through them, just being able to even touch new audiences through their CRM activations that they've had as well. So it's been really exciting, and it's just going to continue to grow, honestly. So we're kind of continuing to see what are new places that we should be working with these partners, whether it's activations or different channels. We had a Milk Bar activation in New York City a few weeks ago, which just was amazing. We were giving away a little bouquet with a Milk Bar cookie, and they were all gone within an hour. We had hoped we'd have enough for like half a day. So like things like that, like how else can we just become even more relevant for the new consumers that we're hoping to get into the brand? So it's going to continue to grow for sure.
That's awesome. That gives a lot of like co-op opportunity too for marketing efforts, I'm sure, to help both businesses grow substantially with different offerings and different messages that are relevant, but looking at it from a different view. I'm curious, whenever you mentioned the CRM data, like that you're able to use with some of these partners, and you can tell me like, you don't want to go there or we need to pivot because I'm throwing this one for a loop. But is the measurement on that get more complicated for you? Like, because you're using other CRM data, or have you guys set it up successfully within your stack that you're able to get a clear view on like this came from that specific pipeline of who we're reaching?
So when I'm talking about sort of tapping into our partner CRM data, like they're doing the marketing, for the two of us. So not necessarily like a share piece, but yeah, I mean, we're always looking to sort of source things within our backend to understand how our different programs are operating from a channel level, as well as if it's a partnership. So yes, we do try to be able to get as much information as we can within the CRM to be able to segment our consumers and see what's working and what's not.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of collaboration that would have to happen between like you guys, the other partner brand that you're working with, like Baked by Melissa, and then your agency partners that you have as well. There's multiple creative agencies probably as well that are working on things. So on that note, I want to hear a little bit more about like what you've built out for what you were describing earlier, like of your team, kind of what does your team look like, and who do you guys work with from an external standpoint too, of like what's in-house versus agency? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my team's really broken out into 4 areas. So there's retention, acquisition, member, which is really anything B2B related, and then brand, which all creative and production also sits under brand, as well as just brand marketing. And so we actually work, anything on our branded side is really done internally. We'll of course work with partners when it comes to activating on any sort of partnerships and things of that nature, but that team's incredible in ideating and creating content themselves and doing the whole production piece of it. And then anything paid media related, we are working with outside agencies. Our general thought is we should work with whoever's best within the different channels. And it's been working for us. To your point, there's a lot of coordination when it's set up that way. But the team's been doing a really great job of making sure that that's seamless. So yeah, so we're working with a variety of different partners who are sort of the best within their space. And yeah, so far it's working. So we'll keep that going.
Do you know offhand kind of your split between what is considered like lower funnel versus like upper funnel of those efforts that are in-house and externally?
We do, yeah, we keep that very close. So even, I mean, all of our reporting is broken out by funnel. So we're really tracking everything very closely to understand, from a spend all the way to a performance perspective. And again, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to Halo too, it really helps us to be able to understand, okay, if we started spending more in this acquisition channel, are we seeing a lift in brand searches or DTS or SEO, and trying to really set that aside so we can really understand if something's working or not.
Got it. I make the assumption that you probably do a lot at the top of the funnel just for occasions, right? Because you don't know who's who's trying to get something when. And then you leverage your like CRM and remarketing efforts kind of in that lower consideration and actual like end market of what you know about someone. Is that a good assumption?
Yeah, and I'll like layer on top of that too, because to your point, there's a lot of acquisition happening, a lot of branding, and it's then kind of re-engaging them and pushing them down the funnel from there. So we're doing a lot of then retargeting off the consumers, visitors, being able to sort of re-engage them to come back. And with all of the capture, so like our email capture widgets on the site, making sure we kind of get them into that bottom funnel to kind of continue messaging to. So yes, it's very much sort of this flow of, okay, we've got their attention, they've come to the site, how do we kind of get them down to purchase? And we've got all maps and coordination across the team that makes the magic happen. So
awesome. Yeah. And I have a couple more questions, but just as a reminder, there is a Q&A box. If you want to submit a question, we'll jump to see if there's any questions there in a little bit, while we have Taryn. The other piece I kind of wanted to throw at you a little bit without a heads up on is as it relates to kind of that the acquisition layer and the remarketing layer of it. I kind of think instantly back to the CRM. Do you guys like look at things from a tiered model perspective of like, people who have not actually made a purchase in the last like 12 months or 2 years or something like that? Do you look at what's actually dated a little bit from that perspective?
We do. So we call them our customer cohorts. So we have about 5 of them, and we're messaging to them very differently. And in that map I kind of alluded to earlier, there's a completely different track for each of them and how they're sort of flowing through and getting exposed to our brand. So yeah, we've found that to be super successful when it comes to our marketing initiatives. It feels a little more relevant, and someone who just signed up for email needs a little bit more education versus someone who's been receiving them for 5 years. So yeah, that's definitely how we operate.
Yeah, and introducing a lot of the new services that you guys are new partnerships that you have with new gifting ideas and solutions for people to get them back in. So as it relates to kind of the competitive market, do you guys, I know that there's a lot of new apps out there that are, gifting services, and there's obviously it's getting a little competitive from that standpoint. Where do you guys kind of sit on your technology capabilities to, be app friendly and to be competitive with those that you're up against for like the next generation of customers that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's something we talk about all the time. Because yes, you're right. From a competitive standpoint, it's just continuing to increase, because even some of these destinations that aren't necessarily messaging themselves as a gifting destination, they're still being used as a gifting destination for those consumers. So it's definitely shifted, I'd say, over the last couple of years as to what that competitive landscape looks like. And from what we feel like our advantage is over everyone is, again, that experience. You're actually getting something handmade and delivered to you. It's not showing up in a box. It's not showing up in a bag. It feels like a gift. So to your point, if you're sending something to someone on the other side of the country and you can't actually do it yourself, it almost feels like you are. So that's really what we've been tapping into and looking to grow. And it's been, like I said, it's been working really well. And so we're really excited for it to keep going.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I know we have one question so far. We'll see if any other pop in here. And this one, I think, popped up earlier whenever we actually were talking about you joining the organization and all the changes that had to happen. And how did you get the stakeholders to buy into all the changes? That's
a good question. It needed to be fixed. It was very clear just from the performance of what was happening that a change needed to occur. So a lot of what I had put in place had worked in a previous life of mine. So it was fairly easy to say, okay, if we do it this way, this is the expected return or efficiencies that we'll be able to see. And really just sort of that branded piece too, and really investing in the acquisition space, proving that out. So we would start somewhat small and again, do either geo tests or some sort of holdout to be able to say, okay, this is the lift that we get from doing something like this. So we need to do more of it. And just continuously reporting out how things are performing. So we're very, very close to the data here, and just being kind of getting buy-in from stakeholders, the board, and you name it, just being able to share all that information with them so they're along for the journey and they understand what's happening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know that from my experience, even whenever you try to go to market with like a new product, a client comes to us and they're like, yeah, we're ready and you're set to go, and you put stuff out there successfully, and you're like, well, the targeting's not broken, but maybe the website could be optimized better, and maybe the message isn't as clear as it could be. There's always those opportunities, and then you got to pivot to like, okay, how do we prioritize this, and what does the game plan look? Do we pull spend back, temporarily, or do we pause? So I'm sure you went through a lot of those like bumps in the road of learning on like what was and wasn't working for the brand and the customer experience ultimately, right? Not having to click through 5 times to find a solution of what they saw in an ad or something like that. So
yeah, and it's changed. I mean, some things that didn't work 2 years ago are now working today too. So kind of, you can't just sit back and say this didn't work either, is sort of another piece of feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And the patience, like the attention span is even shorter. So
yeah,
being able to like get it instantly and be able to connect them with the brand. So well, I have another kind of just closing question. Wanted to throw your way, since you're in the, I'll call it, majority of flower business, even though it's expanding. What's your favorite flower? And also playing off that, what's your go-to social media app that you use regularly?
So my favorite flower is a somewhat controversial one. It's the lily, because it's just very strong in scent. They get kind of messy when everything's sort of falling when they're starting to wilt away. But I just love them. I think they're so beautiful, and I personally just love the scent. So it's not overwhelming for me. And then social media, Instagram. Personally, I'm of that Instagram generation. Like I can't get into TikTok personally. I know from a business perspective, it's working and it's fun, and I don't know, it's Instagram for me. So
yeah, absolutely. I definitely am more of an Instagram guy myself, but I fall in the TikTok hole, as we call it, and it's where I do go to get entertained. If I want a good laugh or some entertainment, like it definitely is a good go-to solution. So yeah. Sylvia, I'm going to pass it back over to you. If you have any questions or wanted to hit on anything.
No, I just thought it was a great conversation. You gave some really amazing insights. So thank you so much for your time today.